You're listening to the Valley Current.
Welcome into the Valley Current. I've been doing this podcast for a while, and I'm so glad to have you this afternoon. I guess I need to first know, are you at home in New Jersey or at home in San Diego, or where are you now?
I'm a Californian now.
I can't believe that.
Right. I do have to go back to Jersey for 2 weeks to close on my house there. I have the closing on May 26th.
You're selling. You're selling. You're burning the Jersey ship and totally moving to California. That's what I'm hearing.
Right, exactly. So I sold my house there, and I'm here.
And you're happy.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here. It's incredible being here.
You got rid of your last Jersey winter. You know, I came from New York. I was born in Queens and grew up in Brooklyn, went to school in Manhattan, and then came out here for law school. That's how I ended up on the West Coast. And then stayed because, hey, you can't beat being in California.
For sure.
With this weather. So, Joel, I wanted to get you on because I credit you often with saying that food is medicine, and this notion that there's a FDA, Food and Drug Administration, it should really be like an FID, Food is Drug Administration, right? Instead of FDA, it should be like FIDA or something like that, Food is Drug Administration. And we should really take seriously what I think people now, in light of COVID-19, are taking seriously, which is that the food chain and food production and what you put in your mouth is pretty important for building resilience, which may be the ultimate remedy for dealing with a virus, whether it's corona or anything else.
But I don't agree with you about the FIDA. Food is not drugs. Drugs are poisonous. They're toxic. They work because they're poisons. And food is not, so it's not, I wouldn't use that same terminology anyway.
What would you use? What would you say?
I would say that if you eat, well, don't you want to get into the podcast and we'll talk about it?
Let's get started. Let's get started. So welcome in Dr. Joel Fuhrman to the Valley Current. We usually focus on Silicon Valley, but these days we say Silicon Valley is like all of California and almost all the West Coast, maybe even going down to Mexico, because the supply chain of people and technology is literally throughout up and down the West Coast and really even across the nation. But Silicon Valley keeps extending its reach. You decided to land in San Diego, and you're going to tell us a little bit about that journey from New Jersey, if I'm remembering correctly. I, of course, was born in Brooklyn, born in Queens and grew up in Brooklyn, went to school in Brooklyn and Manhattan, and then came out to California for law school and stayed. That was like more than 4 decades ago. It's going on like 5 decades ago. I'm getting older here, and you're way younger looking than I am, but I think chronologically you might be slightly older. I think, but you look like you're in your 40s. So whoever's doing your hair, man, they're doing a great job.
I'm 66.
You look great, man. I have to say, you look wonderful.
Thank you. Well, my message today is this, is that even when I wrote Super Immunity back about 8 years ago, even in that book, not to brag, but I predicted and I said that infectious diseases are rapidly growing to be a more common cause of death, especially with antibiotic resistance and more dangerous bacteria developing. And I also talked about novel viruses being able to take more pathogenic forms as they evade immune system capture due to ubiquitous micronutrient deficiencies and phytochemical deficiencies due to the spread of the fast food and processed food movement across the world. And this was to be expected. It's not something it's going to happen again. And that you can't protect yourself with drugs. It has to be food, and we have a ubiquitous immunosuppressed population. Only 2.4% of our population, 2.4% is a normal weight because they eat healthfully. The other 80% are overweight. 90% of people in America have a BMI above 23. Those are overweight.
Above 23? I thought above 30 was overweight.
No, above 30 is obese.
Oh, obese. Okay, obese. Right. Okay.
The BMI above 23, from below 23 is favorable. All blue zones all along with people have BMIs below 23, and for women below 22.
Well, you've got to be like 12 or something because you're in perfect athletic form.
Thank you. Well, so what I'm saying right now is if you eat the way other Americans eat, you have to become sickly and you're susceptible to immediate death. We used to be saying that don't get cancer. we've got the information to win the war on cancer right now. Nutritional science has made those radical advances where if you eat enough of these high nutrient plants, including cruciferous green vegetables, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, flax seeds, and chia seeds, if we construct a portfolio diet rich in these anti-cancer substances, we can wipe out more than 90% of all cancers across America.
Do you know that I teach people here in my office about GBOMBS? I think you've changed the acronym, but I still use GBOMBS because it's
still GBOMBS. The acronym is
GBOMBS. I thought it flipped to something else. I saw it for a while. Didn't flip? And it is very much greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, seeds, and I think you add nuts sort of towards the end of seeds, but no nuts?
No, I'm not saying no nuts. I'm saying the acronym GBOMBS doesn't encompass every healthy food you should eat.
Right.
It just explains the most cancer protective foods. So I want people to eat nuts and tomatoes and other things outside of GBOMBS, but I want people to recognize those most powerful anti-cancer foods. What I'm saying right now is that people don't like the answer of having to eat healthy. They think that cancer 20, 30, 40 years from now, they'd rather risk that and still eat their pizza and their hot dogs, their bacon, and overeat. But with COVID-19 around now, instead of just getting cancer, you might die next week if you don't eat this way. Because the same immune system strength that protects us against cancer will protect us against dying from COVID-19. And we have a susceptible population because they're not eating, they have immune suppression, chronic inflammation, and they're not eating properly for their immune system to function normally.
And you would probably say China as well. You would probably say the Chinese people are doing the Western fast food mistake as well.
Well, they also eat a diet largely of white rice, which was bad enough when it was white rice and vegetables, and now it's white rice and more processed food. There's more sugar, more oil, and more animal products on top of the 60 or 70% of white rice they used to be eating. So their diet degenerated and got worse due to Western influences and more fast food, but it's still a diet that's grossly nutritionally deficient. So we have nutritional deficiencies all over the world today. And let me just say, to be clear about this, that there's no such thing as a healthy overweight person. Fat on the body suppresses immune function and secretes reactive oxygen species, cytokines, lipokines, and predisposes you to cytokine storm in response to a virus. The idea is that if your cholesterol's good, if you don't have diabetes, whatever it is, if you're overweight, you're not healthy, you're cancer prone, and you're prone to death from a virus. What I'm saying right now is that there's that fat is pathologic tissue. It doesn't glean a good blood supply, and it spews out, makes you insulin resistant, and it spews out inflammatory compounds that activate aromatase, making you have higher levels of circulating estrogen, increasing risk of breast cancer and prostate cancer. And almost everybody in America has habituated to overeating and too frequent consumption of food, and they're eating all the wrong foods. And so it's a wake-up call now if you don't want to die. And to be clear about this, that I'm saying a nutritarian, a person eating not to be protected against cancer and COVID-19, either is at a normal weight or they're losing at the rate of at least 1 kilogram a week. When you're losing a pound every 3 days,
a kilogram is 2.2 pounds.
That's correct. That's a pound every 3 days, right?
You're saying that could be a new goal or should be a new goal.
That's right. I'm saying the studies show that the white blood cell act the high degree of inflammation, the high degree of white blood cell activity when people are not sick. They have chronic inflammation when they're not sick. It's like keeping the battery turned on all the time. And that then when you go to use the battery, it can't work because you've been keeping the battery being in use. So they have chronic inflammation. We don't see the insulin resistance go down. We don't see chronic inflammation go down. We don't see aromatase activity going down. We don't see cytokine stimulation go down until people are losing weight. After gastric bypass or lap band placement, as people are losing weight, we see diabetes going away before people have lost all their excess weight. We see estrogen start to come back to normal, and we start to see some parameters, measurable parameters of improvement as long as they're losing weight at least 1 kilogram a week. I'm saying my nutritarian approach makes it so that people go to their ideal weight, but I want to give people the hope that they don't have to wait 6 months to get to their ideal weight to be protected against COVID-19. If they start this program immediately and they drop approximately 15 pounds the first month, and 8 pounds or to 10 pounds the following months, and they keep losing at least 2 pounds a week, they can flood their body with nutrients, get adequate nutrition, still be moving towards the ideal weight, and be protected against death from COVID-19.
But let me connect some dots for you and let you comment on this. I have not seen, and I've watched a lot of shows about COVID-19, and everyone is about vaccine. We need a vaccine. Spend billions for vaccine. Spend trillions for vaccine. We're going to lose 20 trillion with a T, 20 trillion of real GDP here in less than 6 months. In a year, it might be 50 trillion. That's like the equivalent of 50 Apple computers going under, 50 companies that size with thousands of employees going under. I don't see them saying, let's spend $1 on health literacy or diet literacy or food literacy or nutrition literacy. I don't even see people like you getting on to CNBC or CNN or Fox or any of these places, but you'll correct me and say, no, I've been on there. I know you've been on there for decades on PBS and other stations saying, this is what has to happen. But I don't see like mainline America saying, yeah, we don't need a vaccine. We need some better nutrition. I just don't see it. Are you saying I'm not watching the right channels? Because I hear vaccine, testing. I don't hear Pelosi saying, hey, man, we need to get people to eat right. She doesn't look like she eats right, frankly, but we don't have to comment about her. She was eating an ice cream the last time I saw the interview, and people were saying she was like Marie Antoinette, saying, oh, let them eat cake or something.
Well, of course. I mean, I'm in 100% agreement with you. Our government and all the media is in the pockets of the pharmaceutical company, the fast food industry, the restaurant industry, the sugar industry, the meat industry. In other words, the economic powers that sell all these things drive the message. That's why PBS, let me just close the door so you don't hear my dog.
No problem. I understand.
It was a delivery person. My dog attacks the delivery.
Oh, I like that. I like the authenticity of the dog in the background. Sounds like a terrier.
Anyway, so what we were saying is that, yes, I'm agreeing with you at 100% that this message is so critical. I'm screaming it from the rooftops to save lives. We're just talking about drugs. Drugs are poisons. You don't get something for nothing. You put drugs into your system, you're increasing cancer risk. And a vaccine's not going to be ready in 6 months anyway. And the amount of deaths we've seen in these first 2 months is not going to, we're flattening the curve with social isolation and correct sanitary measures, but we're not going to stop those people from being exposed and dying. We're still going to see 3 times as many deaths coming up in the next 3 to 6 months. Whether a vaccine is, we're going to see millions of people dying, and we can save lives. And when you eat to prevent cancer, and you save yourself from dying from COVID-19, you also reduce the risk of heart attack. You get people off the diabetic medication, their high blood pressure medications. You get people not being put in nursing homes. The silver lining, even though we're seeing, there is no real silver lining, but if we could get this message out, that nutritional excellence will solve this issue and stop people from dying. And it will also solve our healthcare crisis and stop all the money we have to spend for healthcare problems that people don't have to have. And if one individual gets rid of their diabetes and becomes non-diabetic, that saves their company $15,000 a year in medical care costs.
Joel, I say this often and people laugh. I say, we need Joel Fuhrman, Dr. Joel Fuhrman, you, to run for president of the United States. I say that often, and Lee, Dr. Lee Suter, my wife, laughs and says, Joel would never, ever want to run for president. I said, Joel could correct what's so wrong in this country. The GDP is getting eaten up by healthcare expense.
Right.
We have a ninny in the office, and we have another one that's running, and I don't know who the third and the fourth is. They can't put a sentence together on how to make America healthy again. I'm going to send you this as a gift from me. I actually wanted to visit with you, and it just couldn't get arranged because of my problem. And we're going to talk about what you're doing in San Diego because you're doing some really interesting stuff. I had these hats printed up. I want to show you this, Joel. You're going to love this. I said we could start a campaign tomorrow with Joel running for president of the United States with this hat. Make America healthy. And you'll notice, Joe, I pick red because I know you're of the view that taxes are too high and they stay too high. So I'm okay with you being the Republican candidate. You could choose to be an independent, you could choose to be a Democrat, but we wear this hat, make America healthy again, and we go across the United States and we say to the world, the biggest problem in America is we are unhealthy. We are unhealthy, and because of diet, of course, exercise plays a role in lots of other things, but we are fundamentally unhealthy. And I read your book when it first came out. I was one of your original at the bookstore. Remember when bookstores existed? I bought the hardcover version.
Right.
I bought the hardcover version. I remember when I brought it home, people were like, in my household, were like, what's this? This is eat to live, not live to eat. The Italian way, you come from a very Italian family, is you live to eat. My dad died at 90, 4 packs of Lucky Strike a day, smoker, 6-pack of beer every night. He lived to 90, Joel. And he would get up in the morning and say, well, what are we planning for dinner? And I'd say, Dad, it's not even breakfast yet. He'd say, yeah, but we got to plan. We got to figure out what we're cooking. And, he was a great chef. I just wish he were alive, because you would look at some of the eggplant Parmesan, you might get upset with all the cheese. You wouldn't get upset about the eggplant or the tomato sauce, I know. But you would look at it and you would say, how's this guy living to 90, man? He probably could have lived to 120 if he were on the nutritarian diet.
Well, it's a bell-shaped curve. So we center around 78 for males, and every person lives to be 90. One dies at 62 or something, so it averages itself out.
Right.
And then you make life a crapshoot. I'm suggesting shifting the whole curve out and narrowing it so we all live to be 95 to 105 years old. But in any case, we can wipe out these risk causes of death that are based on nutritional ignorance. And I'm suggesting it has to be a whole population, a whole educational system has to change. And it has to start in the school systems, where it's reading, writing, arithmetic, and nutritional science. And yes, I've been working very hard on this, of course, as other people have too. But we make minor inroads because there's billions of dollars spent every day to attack this message, to smear the reputation of people giving this message, to silence it, and to produce phony research and short-term studies to try to make it look like it's not, where the evidence is not strong enough, which is ridiculous. What I'm saying right now is that the preponderance of evidence is overwhelming. And I think if anybody who read my book, Eat for Life, my newest book, Eat for Life, with over 2,000 medical references, will see that the overview of modern nutritional science today makes it so that the evidence cannot be denied, and that we don't have to have cancer. We can stop cardiovascular deaths in its tracks. And nutritional science has made the advances to save the healthcare to save the healthcare crisis. And now, of course, I'm saying that we have to do this urgently. Urgently, if people are listening, they have to change the way they eat, because food doesn't taste that good once you're in the coffin, number one. And number two, we can make this food taste incredibly great, and you don't have to lose the enjoyment of eating just because you're eating protecting yourself with eating the right foods.
Well, that's where people disagree with you, Joel. I could just tell you, I'm not one of them, because I've been to your seminars. I went to the one in Italy. I went to the one in, I want to say, Los Angeles or Orange County. And you have chefs come in, particularly the one in Italy. And you might say the one in Italy, was a little bit on the edge of whether, they were really following your formula, because, they had some stuff with oil in it. And I think you were like, hey, you really shouldn't be using oil. And they were like, are you kidding me? We're in Italy. What are you talking about? And
no, that didn't, no.
It didn't happen? That didn't happen?
They were following my recipes. I made sure of that. They were
okay. So I maybe it's my recollection and seeing some oil on the table, and maybe it was a different table than the one I should have been looking at. But Joel does these great seminars, and I've been to them, and they're worth every dollar that is actually reasonably priced. We won't get into marketing or advertising, but I can tell you, if you go through the 1 week or 2 weeks or whatever the one in Italy was and whatever the one in the Orange County was, you learn how to cook and act as your own chef in a way that produces delightful meals with substitutes for what might otherwise be bad ingredients. And a lot of people don't realize that you're kind of a chef. I always say there should be a Dr. Fuhrman restaurant chain after you become president of the United States. I'm building you into a brand here, man. I hope you see that. I'm serious about it, Joel. I'm not making this up. I talk to Dr. Lee Suter all the time about this, my wife, and I say, I don't know what Joel is doing. He's got to take a page out of the Trump playbook. Maybe he doesn't want to be a billionaire. Maybe he is a billionaire already. He doesn't need to be. There should be a chain of nutritarian restaurants, in my opinion.
I don't think that's the answer. Isn't me being president or anything like that. I'm not looking to. In any case, the point is that what I get a lot of personal satisfaction in watching individuals recover their health, and I get so much joy in seeing a person get rid of their high blood pressure, their diabetes goes away, they become non-diabetic, their psoriasis disappears, their lupus goes away. I'm using nutritional excellence as a therapeutic modality to reverse disease. I'm a motivator to motivate people to take better care of their health, saving people's lives out there. And like rays of light, when you change a person's life like that and they get well, they have these super.
Tune in next on the Valley Current.